Right now.
Calling the meeting of the Narragansett Regional School Committee to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to right into the budget hearing? Oh, yeah. We've had a request to remind people to keep the volume up so that everybody here can hear. Thank you very much. All right, we have a...
Yep, Madam Chair, I'd like to motion that we open the fiscal year 19 preliminary budget hearing, and at the end of the budget hearing, we'll adjourn that and come back into open sessions for our regular school committee meeting.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay, do I need roll call? No. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Kazimak to discuss our budget options.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this presentation might look familiar. You know, if folks either watch or are present and you join town board meetings because it's the exact same presentation, so there will be no real surprises. But when we talked about the FY19 budget, we had five total meetings with the Finance Subcommittee made of various members of both communities. And to take us back a bit, what we did at first was create a budget that, in fact, was created the way the budget is supposed to be created. And what I mean by that is that school choice monies were left out of the operating budget. We didn't use school choice in order to balance E&D, excess and deficiency, which in general are money left over. That's generally not used to balance a shortfall in the budget, because in terms of real accounting, you use those monies for one-time expenses, or lack of a better term, rainy day. Something might happen. You know, God forbid, I don't even want to say anything, I don't want to jinx myself. So that's what those monies are there for. I'll be very candid, as someone who's worked with the budgets of many, or at least 5 different districts at this point, it's pretty common practice that you use these monies to balance any type of shortfall. So what we did initially is we literally played it by the book. We used school choice monies, we kept it aside, and in essence, just to get to the end of the story, it came to be almost a 5% increase across the board. So we started thinking about, you know, how much money that revenue that schools can actually count as revenue. A good portion of that money, if not used, would create a budget that would just not be sustainable. It just wouldn't be practical. So the Finance Subcommittee then had Anne Marie and I go back to, in a sense, normal operating procedure, take what monies that we could from the 2 revenue sources that I just mentioned, so school choice and E&D, and apply that to the budget, in which we came up to a 2.8% increase over last year overall. So, in a sense, that's where we kind of start our story. So, in this presentation, is that we are sitting with, and I will have to go back and forth between a slide presentation, folks, and the actual budget sheet, just because it would not play nice with the PowerPoint. So, in essence, how did we come up with a 2.8% increase? What does that really mean? I'm going to go very quickly over a few things, but in essence, what we really have to look at is foundation enrollment. I'm going to stand just because it's here. Foundation enrollment is the money in which we are allocated, and it's used to create how much money per student we receive, and that's for every district. Foundation enrollment are students that they live in Phillipston or in Templeton who go to a public school, period. That doesn't, it doesn't have, they don't have to go here. That could mean they are school choice. They could go to a school choice ballot. They could be at a charter school, a public charter school. And there's some other variances, but they are all the children in which that live in these two towns that go to school in a public entity. This does not include homeschool. It does not include anyone who goes to a private school. It does not include Monty Cat, whole other funding silo, which we won't get into too much at this point. But so the foundation enrollment basically tells us, you know, what kids, how many kids we have generally living in between the two districts that are going to public schools. That creates the number in which they multiply per kid, per student, pardon me, in order to calculate our foundation. So district enrollment. How many kids are currently in seats in this district? That's important. And as you can see, well, as of the minute we did this slide, 1,444. Fluctuates all the time, quite frankly. Go up by 1, down by 1, up by 2, down by 2, depending if kids are moving in, moving out, etc. But as you can see, though, since 2007, we saw a steady decline, and since about 2014, 2015, we have seen an increase. This plays into the conversation here in a minute. So when you start looking at why are these things important, you start looking at the difference between the enrollment and the foundation enrollment and student enrollment. And what you see is that we have surpassed, well, hopefully we're surpassing the foundation enrollment because we have school choice. All right, so another part of this is that that number also represents how many students we have here who come to Narragansett in school choice. And right now, we're somewhere around 224 students. That is another number that fluctuates all the time. Somebody leaves, somebody comes in, somebody is here, lives here in Templeton or Phillipston, and says moves to Gardner, and they say, can we please stay here? And we generally say yes. We call that a school choice in place, and now they live in Gardner, and we will now charge Gardner a prorated amount of school choice money. Okay, so that's how this number looks bigger lots of times than the foundation number. All right, so 2014, 2015, for those of you who were at the meeting, looms a very important time in Narragansett's financial history, which we'll get back to in a bit. All right, so when we start looking at elementary, what happens a lot of times is that we'll start seeing increases in the elementary. Why? Because they want to get their people who either want to move into town or they school choice their students, their children, pardon me, into a district. They try to get them at the elementary level so that they can, of course, create friendships all the way up through, because the idea, of course, that they'll be here until the 12th grade. It's not unusual when districts are on the positive side of school choice that we see a huge increase an increase at this level. So what you're going to see here is that Baldwinville Elementary, DES, of course this is one of the reasons why we needed the new elementary school, is that from 2013-14 to as of about a week and a half ago, we've gone up, 88 students. Okay, to the point where last year we actually had to add a 4th grade teacher because the numbers were just too large. Templeton Center, it's been pretty even, but it's about 170. And what we can do there, that's kindergarten, 1st grade currently, is we do not take a lot of kindergartners just because we like to keep the class sizes low, which is good educationally. And 1st grade, we just don't take a lot of school choice because we want to keep those numbers low. Phillipston, as you can see, has had a fairly good, I think they're up to 173 kids. If you look back in 13-14, it was at 153, to be honest. Most of those numbers are pre-K. Currently, we have about 82 pre-K students down in Phillipston, and the rest, give or take a couple, are students who go to school at Phillipston. So the grand total, as you can see, we're talking about roughly 500 kids in 13, 14, and, 632 over a period of, 3, 4, or, about 5 years. So that's where it starts. School choice. All right. This school choice number is the number that they gave me on December 26th. Okay, it's the number in which they start. It's the preliminary number. Because I just said, right, kids come and they go. So this number, I can tell you right now, is up to 224 receiving, although we have not actually accepted a kid since August. They're the kids who were living here and have lived in another town and have asked for school choice in place. We capture this information because it is not official until June. This is preliminary. So when we start getting into numbers and money, we can't really say that this is an actual dollar amount because it doesn't become actual until July 1. Okay? Now, question came up, I think, after the meeting. Well, if we have a problem with students with, we just overcrowded, why in the world why wouldn't we keep accepting school choice children? Well, first off, we haven't accepted a school choice child K through 7 since August. The high school does have room. And trust me, every superintendent would say this following statement: we would love to just opt out of school choice. You can. The school committee can make the active decision to say we are no longer going to take any school choice children. Here's the thing. One, we're offsetting the deficit of budget with that money, which isn't smart accounting, to be very candid. But you cannot stop kids from school choicing out. Can't do it. So, at minimum, you have got to take in 115 kids to break even at $5,000 per. And that's just if they do not have any special needs. If they have special needs and they school choice in or out, that amount goes up. Not incrementally, it's just depending on service. So that was a good, it wasn't asked during the session, but it was asked me later, well, why don't you just stop school choice? Trust me, we would love to do away with school choice. All of it, everybody would. But you have to balance the number out. And that factors into of course, the conversation. So, where are we trending? These are good numbers for us. We're seeing increases on receiving and we're seeing decreases on sending. That's great. That's what we want to see. We have never had the differential we have this year, ever, since they've been keeping track of school choice. There are more kids who want to come here than leave. That's outstanding. They're mostly coming, well, at least initially for the first couple of years, at the elementary. Then all of a sudden, 48 students wanted to come to the middle school. This is not just school choice, these are also residents too, which we'll get into that a little bit later down the presentation, but those numbers look fantastic. What does the money look like? Well, when we start looking at net, in terms of FY18, it's preliminary. Why? Because we're still in FY18. It does not become actual until June. But if things stay the same, currently right now, using the numbers that were dropped, in December, we look to realize a $670,000 net. Remember when I talked about when those two lines cross, I'm going to go back to the presentation, it becomes hard. But remember I talked about the foundation and the enrollment, and they crossed at 2014-2015 school year. That was a dangerous time. Why? Because in 14-15, you were plus, the net was a $24,000 net plus. That's about what? 2, 3 students depending? That is a dangerous situation. Remember, we don't want to be upside down. You don't want to have more kids going out because you're going to be paying out that money. It must happen. Who do you pay? The districts that the kids, of course, are school choicing out. Okay? So when we start talking about school choice money, the actual was $481,745, which was in FY17. The money that we will receive for FY18 doesn't come to us in FY18. It'll end up coming to us sometime in FY19. It's always a year in arrears, as we call it, wait, all right. Talked about the deficiencies, right? Excess and deficiencies. Is there any money left? Question came up about why or how are you using this money? So we went back to FY13, and it's very clear that whatever monies were remaining after the fiscal year, once the budget was certified, those monies went right back into the budget to, of course, to satisfy or to stave off a gap between what was requested and what was available. So FY17, I didn't put it up here, it's actually in the report, but we'll be using, I think, everything but $50,000, if memory serves, to offset offset the difference. Okay. So, what do we need? Administrative team started first week of October, and we identified and looked at the things that we needed, and we did this through a process that took about a week or so. And it wasn't very hard to come up with these 3 items, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. An elementary assistant principal. What we know is when the new school is built, they'll have roughly 650 some odd students in that building. There'll be no way to deny the fact that we'll need an assistant principal. 600 kids, over probably 25, 26, that's just content area teachers, and you're definitely going to need an assistant principal. And we'll get to that to the end. 5th and a 6th grade teacher. I've already gone over the reasons why, what's been happening, which is all positive. Kids are either moving back into the district, and kids absolutely want school choice back into this district. Currently, right now, Emery wasn't here today, but at last check, we had 28 school choice applications for next year. If I wanted to, I could, 28 times 5,000. Someone do the math. But that's not smart thinking, because what happens is I have to put them someplace, and the problem is that we have so many kids coming up through the elementaries that at the 5th and 6th grade, we're at 125 per grade, roughly, which I'll get to in a minute. We only have 4 teachers in each grade, 4 content area teachers. You're looking at 31, 32, 33 kids per class. We have to do something to not, well, obviously we can't allow that to happen. First off, it's just not good educationally, and, 30 middle schoolers, period, okay, in one room, all right? So the fact is that the district enrollment, which we talked about overall, has gone up. We know this. It's not always been the case, but currently it is. The last 3 years, we have seen increases. We've seen most Templeton students have increased, probably definitely the most since FY15, and Phillipson hanging in there around 200 and, I'll call it 210 on the average. We've seen our school choice numbers go up, which we've already talked about. Okay? So, why the middle school assistant principal? We have 458 kids currently between 2 elementaries. Templeton Center and Baldwin. 26 content area teachers, 25 content area teachers, several special education teachers. We're talking about evaluation. We split the evaluations now, but what's happening is that we have so many kids, we have issues that we need to deal with. We have supervisory issues that we have to take care of, and it's becoming a bit of a safety concern. Wherever Nat North is, it always seems that something is happening in the other place. Yes, the middle school has been fantastic and wonderful, right? Dr. Cushing, Dana, Kendall, they assist whenever they need to, or if, God forbid, if we're that desperate, I'll go down. But it does work, but it's getting to the point now where we're not able to apply just good, appropriate supervision, and that is the only level 3 school in this district, which, by statute, I must do something to fix that. And when they start looking at the grand picture, they look at your level 3 schools first. Baldwinville Elementary, for the last 5 years, has been a level 3. Okay? Why do I need the teachers? Well, this year, this is the core teachers, math, social studies, science, English, what their student-to-teacher ratio is. 29 to 1, 30 to 1, 21 to 1, which is good in the 7th grade, and 24 to 1 in the 8th grade, which is exactly where we need these numbers to be. It doesn't get better over next year Because remember, we already know we have 125 kids who are going to be 5th graders. We know that. We know that they're there now. And so now all of a sudden we have a middle school at 31 to 1, 29 to 1, 24 to 1 in the 8th grade. Looks pretty healthy at 21 to 1, just a dip here. All right. So the question became, when I go on the Department of Ed website, it says that your student-to-teacher ratio is 15 or 16 to 1. Be careful with that, because if you look at that number, they're taking 600 some odd classes and dividing by the total number of teachers. Well, we already talked about, well, we will, but Phillipson's numbers are low per class. Also, special education classrooms can have no more than 10 per one teacher. We have AP classes at the high school that we do not fill up to 24, 25, 26 kids. So, yeah, as a district, when you take 600 and whatever, how many courses that they calculated, and they take it by the number of core teachers, yep, we have about a 15 or 16 to 1 ratio. Our budget doesn't ask for a teacher at every level. It's asking at the levels that we are 30 plus kids per teacher. And so I think that's an important thing to put out there, because the fact is that we're looking at specific areas. All right. So I will come back to the slide. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the income sheet first. All right. So the income sheet, which you should have a copy of. So what does this mean? Well, again, depending on how usually you're looking at these in terms of the public, we went up a whopping, let's see, from FY18 to 19, Chapter 70, which is the state's funding mechanism, we went up a whopping $25,000. Charter school reimbursement was good. We actually went down. We have to pay for our students to go to charter schools, even though they're public charter schools. Yes,
I just want to say
Yep.
that number is not good, because we're actually expending almost $200,000 and we're only getting a reimbursement.
Right.
And that's
Yeah,
key.
we're expending $200,000, and the reimbursement is not as much. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Chapter 71, transportation. Yeah, so when we have to look at transportation, it's gone up $65,000, 21.67%. I mean, I could literally keep going down. But when we start going all the way down to the Templeton and Phillipson contributions, you start seeing what the additional appropriations are and what we, and what the Finance Subcommittee has deemed that we need in order to operate. When you take that in its totality and you look down to the very bottom line, taking into consideration both Templeton and Phillipson's contributions, debt service, etc., assessments, it comes to a 2.82% increase over last year. Okay? I'll just roll, and then I'm sure the question will come. So we start looking at the operating budget, which is the two-sided sheet. Anyway, why don't you explain this a little bit while I just real quick about what the numbers are here.
So I put together everything that the district uses to operate its budget. So we have, what they're looking at tonight is our general fund budget, but we also have revolving accounts that make up our budget too. A lot of our athletics comes from athletic revolving. The cafeteria solely runs by itself through the cafeteria revolving. Same with our preschool program. And our extended day program is completely self-sufficient. Circuit breaker tuition is a reimbursement we get based on our special ed kids, and then our school choice money just explains that. So all of those numbers together, plus what we actually get from our Department of Ed grant, gives you a total district operating budget of $23,708,925. So you can see the different funding sources that make up what that number is. And at the bottom,
after you take all the revenues away, you can see that the district had a shortfall of $319,000. And if you flip your page over, those numbers are what we have proposed to move to school choice to make up that shortfall, and we are proposing to increase E&E by another $47,000 to balance the budget.
Okay? So, to put this in context, I want to go back to school choice. It's our $1 million and some change, roughly, right? $1.2 million. 600,000 of that, and I'm rounding, is not actual. That's projected. Remember what we said, right? So we already know, we already have FY17's, pardon me, yeah, FY17's school choice money. We have that, because that was last year. We're hopeful and projecting that we're going to receive the money that I showed you earlier, because now we're spending money that we, when I say we really don't have, I don't want to paint a picture that's devastating. I have never seen that number come off more than $50,000 to $75,000. Once they project it, generally the kids are here. Okay, once they're here for the most part, and if they do leave for some, auspicious reason, it'll be the next year that you'll see your school choice or in decline or increase depending. So just a good portion of that money is actually projected. So we're actually spending money that we're not really sure, but fairly confident kind of that we'll receive. Okay? Now, this is what makes it difficult to have a conversation. This is FY18, this last year. These are the cuts that we had to make last year in order to balance. Okay? We had to cut $289,469. Okay? $289,000. Digital literacy teacher, horticulture teachers, guidance counselor, the librarian, the math coach, which in a roundabout way was a teacher that we made a math coach, and the reason why we did that is because a good portion of her salary is actually paid through a learning grant that if she continues to do some consulting work, a good portion of her salary and benefits are paid. So that actually shows me that it's good for the district in terms of professional development, but it saves us money. Okay? Paraprofessional, we had to realign some tutors. The custodian for central office doesn't exist. And I know that you love the automated notification system, but we went with a cheaper model, and we're going to go back to the other model because I think we made some mistakes. So we're going to go back to the good one. In the preschool para, we had to put into the revolving account, preschool revolving. So this is all last year's stuff. Okay, so this is last year. We had to actually take back 2 of these people because the numbers became so high at the middle school. We had to do that in August. By the way, the budget was already set. The budget was already voted, set, everything was done. We had to take back a guidance counselor for the good of the order. And we had to take back what ended up happening is that it was the elementary health teacher because we had the schedule would not work. We needed the health unified arts class to be present in order for the entire elementary schedule to work, because we share all the unified arts teachers. And so, on top of that, this whole woe is me, but it is what I have to factor, is that librarian, who was reduced in force last year, no longer exists. So we share the library with the middle and the high school. And he came in to do, for the high school, their audit, which we have to do every 10 years or so. It's not, and they cited us for not having a librarian. Okay. You didn't have a librarian. We're sorry. We got cited. Okay. What's happened in the last month is that the Mass Library System, or the MLS, which is the state service for all libraries, whether they be in schools, universities, or local, has just let us know that they are going to pull our subscription to the Gale database, the digital ebooks, the interlibrary loan service, etc. Because we do not have a librarian. Mike Wakefield, our technology director and snake oil salesman, has somehow at least kept them at bay, that they're not going to, in March, shut us off, so to speak. I'm trying to be, but it's not funny, but Mike has been on the phone and on bended knee and says we have a plan and we just need to so this stuff, these cuts then start to materialize into some real issues. The horticulture program, which I received a lot of feedback, not positive, when we had to cut that position because we were trying to save core teaching positions. Chapter 74 monies, which is vocational, we had to write a plan on how we were going to transition out those students that were currently in the horticulture program. Folks, that's costing us a lot of money because we have to utilize them out to do that. By the way, just in case anybody's wondering, it was still less than having a teacher, etc., but it's still costing us money. So these things are starting to kind of, we're starting to feel the ill effects of, obviously, these cuts. So, in order for you to understand this year's budget, I felt it was important, not to gain any sympathy, but to show what we did last year. We can only do so much. I will be honest that if our student enrollment, stayed exactly the same, or even went down by 10 or 11 kids or something to that effect, we could have kept the norm, looking forward, we'd be able to keep the status quo, right? We'd be able to keep the same amount of teachers, because the kids would be the same, right? We'd have all the same amount of teachers we had last year. But the fact of the matter is that I keep using this increment of 48 net receiving kids. We're plus 48 year over year. What's important to know is if you take the last 2 years, okay, 17 and 18, we're plus 81. We are plus 33 students in FY17. We are plus 48 this year. And we decreased our teachers by 4. Among all these other things, it's math that doesn't, it's not good math. It doesn't make, we can't sustain it. And that's the issue, is that when you start looking at this in totality, that is why we're, this 2.8% budget is important. And because we're not sure how we're going to do business, otherwise. So, I think I've talked way too much, sure, but I'm hopeful that I've brushed upon maybe some of your questions, and we'll entertain questions, I guess, Madam Chair?
Yes,
okay.
That will be fine. Well, should we start with the school committee? Do we have questions? I just had a comment. The grant amounts look like they're decreasing. These are federal grants. Is that the case? So a lot of the supplementing that we were able to do, which is not really useful, it should be in addition to, has been going down each year, and this year it looks sizable.
Yeah, Title I, she has a decrease proposed for next year, and next year will also be the last year of our preschool grant. The state's doing away with it.
Yep, and that's a big grant, too. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Mrs. Hughes.
I just think it's important to note when we talk foundation budget that the number of students used to come up with the dollar amount is October 1 of essentially 2 years ago. So that even though we've seen this increase, we won't be, I'll say, rewarded monetarily for 2 fiscal years. So there's always this lag effect, especially when you're growing, and that makes it difficult. And the other part of the foundation budget that I think is important for people to understand is we are in a hold harmless position. When we had much higher enrollment, our foundation budget was at a certain level. As the enrollments went down, the state held us harmless. We should have gotten this, but they still gave us the same baseline. As our numbers start to increase, we're still held harmless. So even though we may have more kids, we're not seeing the benefit of the actual arithmetic by the factoring of the students times the multiple factors within the foundation budget. And the slight increase is because the governor is $10 so far per student is the relief aid, I'll call it, which doesn't really help any district. So it's almost a farce. And that number has in the past fluctuated between $50 to $10 a kid, and we'll see what happens once we get to the further steps in the budget cycle. But $25,000 does not really help us when we've seen an increase in 41 students.
It was $13,000 after the governor applied the relief.
And the transportation reimbursements?
That's the hottest
Yeah.
information out there. If we should be receiving 100% of our transportation. That's what it says. It's subject to, what money the state has. And it's actually, though, it's gained a lot of traction. We're hopeful that they can do something better than 72, 73, 75, whatever percentage they come up with. Because in a regional, we must pick up children and bus them to school after, I think it's 2.5 miles. I'm honestly forgetting the stipend. We must. Where a municipality does not. They can say that because the regulation is like 6th grade. They only, from, I believe it's 6th grade and below, that you must transport. And after that, I worked in a district which they did not transport their 7th and 12th grade. So.
And I think it's important to also note with regional transportation, not only does it say subject to appropriation once in the law, but now it says it twice, which is kind of ridiculous. But with the advent of all of these new regional charter schools that are trying to come into play, they're regionalizing to get their piece of the regional transportation budget. So that means the pie that always seems to be at a stagnant level that the state appropriates is now being split to more districts. So even if they increase the appropriation to the pool, our percentage is not going to go up significantly. And there's a lot of advocacy to try and get that change, and hopefully we'll see some movement. But it's risky to anticipate anything more than really what we have.
That's how they were trying to reward regionalization, and they've taken that away. Any other questions? Okay, we'll take questions. When we do take questions, what I'd like you to do, please, is to come down front. Unless you can identify yourself with your name so that we can hear you. Many people where we live, we're used to being able to do that. And otherwise, there is a microphone down here. We do have a public policy on comments for the length of time that they are, and also we keep them appropriate. So I see Mrs. Richard will start us off.
Oh, thank you. I'm just going to stand, if you don't mind.
I think we can hear you.
I just had one quick question.
Sure.
At the high school level,
Yep.
why are the children leaving our district? And the other part of that question is, where are they going and why? I guess that's my question.
Sure. So 30 kids go to Morning Tech. Right off the bat, right off the top. So before they even become freshmen, technically 30. So when you only have a class of 120, let's think positive, here's 30. In terms of school choice, give me 1 second to just go back to one of the slides. So, remember, Monty Tech is not school choice, so let's make sure I keep saying that, because I got some emails.
But you put the number in, 30 go to Monty Tech, but that's
You
not
said where the high school kids are going, so the first 30 go to Monty Tech. So when we start looking at where they're going 9 to 12, which were a grand total of 72 in 2018, or at least at the number of, when we get that number, that's when I lock in. They go to various districts. So some go to Quabbin, some go to Marsh, some go to Gardner, some go to Winchton, some go to Ash West. I'm trying to think of some of those are generally the four, well, they stay fairly local, generally speaking. We have, I think, 13 kids, or pardon me, 8 kids, I think, go to charter. I'd have to grab that report. I'd have to see that, but that's charter. We have a number of kids who go to Catholic private schools, wherever, I'm trying to think of St. Pete and otherwise, and so they don't even register as school choice. I'm just saying, I'm just giving you the where do they go. So they go around, they're everywhere, so to speak. And so the question is, well, what district do they go the most? I think it's a tie somewhere between Quabbin and probably Ashland. I mean, in terms of 13 years.
Can I just add to that? Can you give a reason why they're leaving your district?
So we tried to put out we were going to do it again.
Is it MCAS scores? Is it, what is the reason? Have you ever felt that? Have you ever have you ever asked parents why they leave the district with their children at high school level?
So we have a survey that we attempted to send out, in terms of the school choice survey.
Yeah.
We didn't receive a lot of, most people,
you didn't get that.
They don't get a lot. We're going to do it again this year. We're going to put it out again. Addresses change too, so if they go private, for example, if they go to private school, or they go to school, homeschool, or I'm just trying to think of something else, honestly, they certainly are in our database, but where they end up, it's hard to find their address. We have their address, we think they still live there, so a lot of stuff is returned.
Okay.
So some people move. So there's this whole other piece that they move. And so they might end up in New Jersey, I don't know, Maine. I mean, it's of course, we don't have a lot of kids that we're talking about here, and we're talking about, 72 over, the entire high school. It varies, but the 2 districts I mentioned, and we're going to try to put out the other survey, but people weren't real interested in letting us know. When I put out the parent surveys last year, it wasn't as we did.
Right.
Thank you.
We did gander. Some of it was sports that we didn't have.
Yep.
That was one of the big draws. Other times it was convenient for the parent where they were.
That 14-15 year that you referred to was the year that there was actually a question of whether or not there was actually going to be athletics that year.
Right.
And we saw a lot of kids, because my son was coming into the high school at the time, a lot of kids jumped ship then because of athletics. I mean, that's my opinion. I shouldn't say that they wrote athletics on their form, but you know what I mean.
No,
That's what we saw. We saw the numbers increase during that discussion. Yes. So thank you. Yeah.
I'm Christine Bennett from Phillipston. I have 4 children currently in the district, 1 already graduated. I'd like to follow up on the flip side of that question of why do you think so many students school choice in? Anecdotally, from other people I know, I've heard at the middle school level it's because of our fantastic band. At the high school level it's because of our AP offerings that other schools may not have. Is there any factual basis for either of those or what else? And are those definitely in the budget to continue?
Well, so the school choice certainly have to apply. So they fill out a form and they have to submit it. And so lots of times what we hear is that from the people whom school choice in can't, because we're full. So they'll call and they'll say, geez, my God, I definitely want my son or daughter to come in. And they'll just tell you, we don't pander. I'm not going to ask, well, why do you want to come here? I mean, So, but mostly they'll talk about at the elementary level, the level of education. They're obviously, especially lately, about being safe, safety. We get a lot of requests to come here that we really can't because people are being bullied other places, and that they've heard that we're kind here. I'm not making this up. I mean, people do say those things. Now, I can't take them if we're full. Mind you, the high school at this point, well, I can tell you that 2 parents came to us that we've seen a lot of residents come back. And so that was very interesting that where were they, because I didn't know where they were, honestly, and they just materialized. That's because they were coming from private, which we don't have record of, because remember, we don't keep track of if they're private or homeschool. We saw 10 students come back from a local Catholic private school, all at the elementary level in like a 2-week period. And so then we had, I think, 4 homeschoolers come back, came to public school the last week of summer vacation. So, I do get to talk with some of them. Anecdotally, yes, we have good things to offer. Our sport teams are doing well. Our band is, around here is very, very good. We have the plays, we have the arts, we have AP courses. I'm trying to think of some of the things that have come up. Mostly it's been safety, and it's been environment. If we're talking about the elementary kids, and that's mostly, again, remember going back to the numbers, that's generally the number of the most kids coming back. So hopefully I answered your question.
Well, just the last part, I didn't see the whole budget with all the details that you people have, but I'm just curious if with the level of services at the 2.8, that will include all the same programs that are currently in place?
If you're asking specifically for the music teachers, so let's just say that currently that's in the budget.
And all the AP offerings that are still there?
Well, you're right. We've not cut any AP or any teaching positions.
And these are not new positions. These are existing positions. There's nothing new in the 2.8, other than the 3 that he mentioned.
Right.
So that means that what we currently have is in place.
And any retirements will be replaced?
As of right now.
So the position will be in place. We do know the students that go to private schools, because under some grants we have their names, but many of those students live in the towns of Templeton or Phillipston. So when they come back, that's their right. This is their school that they're paying taxes for, that they should be using. Do we have any other questions? Yes. I'm sorry, I don't have names.
I am Paul Grubb. I'm a member of the Templeton Advisory Committee. Our role is supposed to, good thing about it, people are paying the taxes, because we're the ones who are supposed to be representing the taxpayer in Templeton. When we looked at what your 2.8% increase was to us, it really represented an 8% increase in the Templeton assessment. You take out the debt, which is just a pass-through. That's what the real impact is to Templeton. It's $484,000. And we look backwards to see, what it has been year to year, as far back as 2013. And there's been an average of over 6.5% increase every year to the Templeton assessment, for a total of over $2 million in 6 years. So we get questions, try to answer them best we can, and I just want to know what quantitative data or metrics that possibly you could share with the taxpayer, the Templeton taxpayer, that talks about, what improvements have been made in that period of time. I'm talking in regards to student achievement, teacher qualification, something that we can go back to the taxpayer and say, yeah, this is what you're getting out of it. $2 million is an awful lot of money, but here's where your money's being used.
A lot of that. Yeah, go ahead. I'd like to field part of the question. I think you have 2 factors at play. One, historically, Templeton had been under effort in minimum contributions. So the state has set a target for each of the towns to participate in 50% of paying for the school's budget. And then the state will come in and pay the rest. If you go back in time, you'll see that Templeton was under effort, and the state really made big strides in the past 3-4 years to fix all of the districts, the towns, to get them at their minimum contribution. So what you saw was year after year, a big jump. They weren't going to make a hit the $2 million at one time, so they had a formula, and I don't know it offhand. Is it up there? Okay. That they figured what that jump should be. So as Templeton's minimum contribution increased, our state aid portion decreased. So they're trying to get a true 50-50 split is what gentleman from the budget office was talking about. That's really where they're looking to go. So when you say the additional $2 million for value, the school district didn't see all of that money because a lot of it was taken away from the state side. At play, too, on the flip side, is we've seen, as the town has and as personally we all have, big increases in health insurance, benefits, and all of these other things that unfortunately the foundation budget up until this year hadn't addressed any of these changes. There was slight inflation adjustments, but they never really took a look at costs such as health insurance. They started this year by tweaking the formula a little bit, but in order for the state to fully fund the schools at the right rates, there's something like $4 or $5 billion are needed. It's an astronomical number, so they're trying to do different areas. Again, unfortunately for us, even with the tweaks, because of where we are with the hold harmless, we're not seeing an increase to that number. So I think when you talk $2 million, it's not really a true number that we've been given those funds in addition to what we have. So just to set that at play. I think as far as what improvements to the district, because even regardless when you look at what we've been able to do with the funding that we've had or haven't had in a lot of cases, especially when you take into things like all of the unfunded mandates. If everyone remembers ballot question 2 last year, which was all charter school related, it was the inequity in charter schools. We got reimbursed, as you see on our income sheet. This year, we're going to get $10,000, yet we have to strike a check to charter schools for almost $200,000. That's $190,000 that we have to come up with out of our budget. So there's a lot of these unfunded mandates as well that we've had to figure out how to put into the budget, fund them, and perform the correct services for our kids while meeting all of these federal and state mandates. So I think when you look at what value you're getting, and I'm going to let Dr. Kazavant speak a little more about curriculum and academics and achievement and things, I think when you look strict numbers, it's not a $2 million number that we talk to. You have to understand all the components that put it in play to get us where we are.
We would have loved to have had that $2 million to show you what we could have put in place, but that went to the state. Dr. Kazavant, do you want to add something?
Yeah, so coming in, and so what do you need to do? Well, first off, academically, to start off anything without being prepared would not be wise. I will tell you that I think it was 3 years ago. I was just conferring with Anne Marie that 3 years ago, Narragansett Middle School was the only level 1 middle school other than Neshoba, within probably 50 miles, more beyond that. It's a hard thing to do. Dropped to level 2 the last couple of years, which, by the way, that's nothing to be ashamed of. A lot of those schools are struggling, and we've done very well there, and that's a credit to Dr. Cushing and the staff. The high school, I know I had Ms. Fassel here in the last year. We, in terms of our...
We had 100% attendance of our sophomores who took the ELA, and we also, I think we had 98% for the math, and we had the highest scores that they've ever seen with the current teachers in both of those. In ELA, we had all of our students pass last year. We only had 2 students that had to retake the math from last year.
The difficult thing to, when you start talking about what are you paying for, is that we then have to compare ourselves with other schools, which, by the way, I have no problem with. Because if I were to do that, we're going to look very good, very candid. Now, then what ultimately happens, they say, well, sure, but how are you doing against Wellesley? What about our new box? Sure, it's pretty good on the air. Small, big pond, or whatever. So the fact is that what we offer, quite frankly, is a very good educational program. We need to improve it, and that's what we're doing now currently. Technology-wise, I don't know of another district who is probably more wired than we are. And if anyone doubts that technology is the way, it's here. And we do a lot with technology, the Google Suites, the Google Chromebooks, etc. We are way ahead in those areas. The types of colleges that we put kids into, we do a list every year. I'm not certainly going to try to remember all the kids we put into good colleges. We put a lot of kids into colleges, and good colleges, by the way. Any college is a good college. So I want to say that out loud. We also were able to offer them an opportunity through a grant to take courses at the Mount, STEM-related, math and science. No matter where they go to college, by the way, those credits are going to transfer into his grad credit. So mom and dad save a little bit of money, which is always a good thing. So it brings up a good point. Do we need to do a list of our accolades? Sure. Do we need to brag? We do. We need to brag a little bit. And schools generally don't do that very well. First off, I don't feel comfortable. To do that, quite frankly, I do a good job. And to put our information out there sometimes can be a double-edged sword. But that's a good point. We should probably hit our highlights about what we do offer here and what is your money buying?
Yes, and we also added, with a grant written by our academic department head, we had 65,000, so we're able to offer Project STEM. Mrs. Cleese, would you tell us about that grant that was given to this district? It was highly competitive.
Right. So that was a competitive grant. We wrote two of them. We wrote the middle school Project Lead the Way grant for STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and the high school grant. We received $30,000 at the middle school and $35,000 at the high school, so a total of $65,000 over 2 years. And that's for durable costs to offset that, because it's hard sometimes for a district to come up with that outlay to get a program going. So it's going to cover those costs.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's additional. Yes, let's go to Mrs. Haley, then Mrs. Richards.
I'm Diane Haley Brooks. So I guess I would just like to make a comment that every year Templeton has given the override money as a gentleman's agreement, and that normally it would be given as the first year only, and then we could have used part of that for the town, and we don't. And last year, I went to bat for even more money and got my rear end chewed out by the TA, but you got your money. So it's, I feel that we've done our part. And yes, we were underfunded, but it wasn't by $1 million one year and $1 million another year, but we did it. In addition to the additional appropriation, yes, we were under effort, but we did make that effort to always give you the additional appropriation, and here, it's still here in addition to. So at this point, so I don't know if the the $1,430,000 includes the additional $136,000 that was included from last year or not. I hadn't really dug into that number. I just wanted to make that comment that really, honestly, it was for the first year only, and we've done it every single year for as long as I can remember, indefinitely for as long as I've served on the select board.
Thank you. This under effort was accumulation of years.
I understand.
So they've been catching you up from many years. Those two. Mrs. Richards.
I just had a question on what your ratio is at the high school level. Teacher, student.
But
In
that's a difficult
2017,
question.
what was your ratio?
Yep. So,
Oh, two.
I don't think I can see this one. Sorry. So,
That's private school ratios, correct? I mean, 12?
where's the 12?
Oh, he said
That's AP.
He said that.
It's huge. It's like
Where's the
smaller,
ratio?
right?
I don't understand. Where do you see the ratio?
So what is your teacher-student ratio at the high school level?
Right. So basically, we can calculate it. I could easily just divide the number of kids, and you can do this right now if you like, but 345 divided by 27. I will tell you that that's not going to be, it's not going to be accurate at all. Why? Again, because those are high school core teachers, not special education teachers, which that's fine. But when you divide that, there are 2 or 3 AP courses with 10 or 11 kids in there, which, by the way, in order for it to be an AP course, you're going to have to keep those numbers down. You're talking about the highest level of math, science, ELA, history. If I'm forgetting something, please forgive me.
That's what I'm referring to.
Right. So you're talking about these kids are your academic, I'll say all-stars. They are the top 10%. And if you have, now just to put it in perspective, if you have a senior class of 100 kids, and you have 10 kids, both juniors and seniors, I suppose, so make it 200. You got everybody in the top math class. You got 10 kids in there. That's exactly how it should be. You're not going to be able to fill that. You're not going to be able to fill that class with 25. Why? Because there isn't probably the fortitude or the want to be taking AP Calc, AP Statistics. I'm trying to think of some of the other, the really high AP Bio. And if you're going to be a high school that's going to be competitive, which, by the way, that's what we have to be, is competitive. You have to be able to offer those AP courses. Have to. We're a school. And so we put kids in, obviously, kids want to go to college, we go to college, and they didn't have those in order to get into the good schools.
May I just speak to our AP scores, because that was something that was brought up. So last year for the 2016-17, 2017 AP testing season, our students took 138 AP exams. Of the 138, we had 27% who scored a 4 or a 5. If you're familiar with the AP exams, it's a scale of 1 to 5. 4s and 5s are generally accepted at all schools or all colleges for college credit. Some schools accept 3s, and we had 43 of our students who received a 3 on their exam. So we had 74 exams, 74 students who received a 3, 4, or a 5. So a little better than half, a little better than 50%. So I would say that our AP program is something that we definitely have to offer, to our community.
Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Carter Terenzini. I am the town administrator for the town of Templeton. And I have no doubt that the needs the doctors presented are real, and I don't question the value that people get for their dollar. We used to laugh at the previous chairman that I worked with, because we went every year to the school budget hearing and talked about the bucket of money. We used to laugh about it as being Vinny's bucket speech, and I hope he feels I do it well here this evening. The doctor's done a great job at presenting the budget of 2.8% increase. He's done a pretty good job also at skating on the 8.1% increase that this is for the town of Templeton. And he's also done a great job at avoiding the fact that the $485,000 increase in assessment takes all new Templeton money 2.51 times all new Templeton money. So the town will receive about $225,000 in new revenue next year. And the doctors asked for a budget that would call for us to give you 2.15 times that, or $485,000. I don't say this hopefully disparagingly. I say it with some admiration, because you do have to be able to get your message out. He's done a pretty good job of that. Our budget as it is, because there's only so many resources to share, for all of the services that you need to provide, we need to provide to our shared community. Requires a $376,000 override. That's our issue. Select board's dealing with it. Advisory board's dealing with it. But after our assessment goes above $6.2 million, we are into real structure, real meat and bone. I'm talking about people and complete services. And children are important, but so aren't the seniors, the working people that need to get to work in the morning through those snowstorms. And I thank you, Doctor, for holding tonight's off so we could have this hearing and not have to reschedule it.
Not snowing yet.
At $6.2 million, that means an increase of 3.2% for the community. And it actually improves our above minimum required contribution. Currently, the town is spending 23.5% above net school spending required, minimum required contribution. Even at $6.2 million, we go up to 26% above minimum required contribution, less than the 43% and change that would, because if you went to 42.96%, if you went to the 2.8% total gross budget increase. So what I'm asking you to do tonight is to direct Superintendent Cassavant to bring you back a budget that keeps the Templeton contribution debt excluded at $6.2 million and no higher. That allows this community to protect the services that it needs to provide everyone. It provides a substantial increase in our assessment to this district. It increases the town of Templeton's above net minimum school spending. Let's be honest, the culprit here is the state of Massachusetts. They have not improved. They have not kept their promise that they used to entice you into regionalizing. And they have not addressed the Chapter 70 funding formula since it was adopted many years ago. That's my simple plea. Thank you.
Thanks, Carter.
Okay, Mrs. Hughes, get it.
First, I'd just like to say that it's not the doctor's budget, it's the school committee's budget. So we had to, it is our role to come up with a budget figure. We asked Dr. Kazman and our business manager to look at numbers for us, but these are the numbers that the school committee has come up with. Dr. Kazman is simply our advocate for the budget. I want everyone to be well-versed that that is the school committee's role, not Dr. Kazman's. I think I certainly appreciate the position that Templeton is in. I think there's many, many towns. I think one of the things that people have to understand is foundation budget. Like when you build a house, you pour a foundation. You need to build on that to create, in our case, a school that will serve our students. You look at any district out there, you are hard-pressed to find, with exception of maybe some vocational schools, any district that funds at foundation. You want to talk Wellesley? They fund well over foundation because they can. And what do they have there? They have fabulous academic programs because they can fund those programs. So I understand the challenge that a town has, and Phillipston, as well as Templeton, have the same challenges with funding. But what I think we also need to point out is when you look historically at where the funding has come from and what is done. I'm reading through your balanced budget policy, which is a fabulous policy to have. It speaks to not using one-time or non-recurring revenues to fund ongoing expenditures. I know I recently read in the paper that years ago the town of Templeton bought down the tax rate. Okay? There's a lot of override potential in town. I'm not advocating we throw overrides out there, but one of the issues that the communities in these areas have, and it's not just Templeton, it's other area communities as well, is it's hard for anyone to make a dollar and then pay those taxes. But I think, and I'll speak for myself, and I'll let my colleagues here on the committee advocate for themselves, this budget that we have presented provides level services for our children, services these kids need and we can't move forward without. So although I respect your wishes that we would ask Dr. Kazanant to go back and rework the numbers, I don't feel comfortable, nor do I think I could vote for anything other than providing these services to the kids so that, that's why I'm elected. I am here to be the voice of our children, to do what's best for them. And this budget, it still really doesn't do it, but it's a step forward, and we've attempted to take some of those expenses and fund them out of our one-time funds. We already have, I think, Mrs. Geister, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of ongoing expense out of that school choice revolving account for benefits? Half of our health insurance? Okay, we pay out of one-time monies because we don't want to push that back to the town. That's not good. School choice goes away. How do we pay those benefits? We will be coming to the town at that point because we're going to have to. So I think it's really important that everyone understands we're not asking for things above and beyond. This is what our kids need to succeed. And I cannot do anything other than stand behind the budget that we've presented this year.
Further comment?
I think if I just did the math, quickly, that's looking to cut another $291,000. Am I the only one coming up with that number? An additional $350,000?
With the Phillipston?
Oh, with Phillips, okay. That's an additional, that's bodies. That's teachers. That's a lot of teachers. $350,000 worth of teachers.
And you want to talk about people jumping ship when the class sizes go up, and that's when our school choice starts to invert like that. It's the self-defeating principle that we, this big downhill slide that impacts each other.
Looking at the, I'm sorry. Okay. We have school committee comments. I'm about to talk, but I'll save it. We had Mr. Morrison.
So I'm Doug Morrison. I would just like to ask a question. You guys do a great job. We do have a great school, and I'm glad that our town has a good school. However, in order for the town to be sustainable, there has to be some sort of compromise. If not, then the town is going to lose services. How attractive is it going to be for people to come to Templeton or for students to school choice in when there's no ambulance service, potentially, or there's no, other kinds of services? If the town has to start eliminating services, the town now is no longer attractive for people to come here. How is that going to benefit the school?
That also doesn't help with our students who are trying to get an education in the town of Templeton and currently live here or will come in. Because we can't service roads doesn't mean that these 8-year-olds shouldn't have the best education that they're supposed to have. As I look at this budget, you've got ambulance receipts minus $75,000, timber sales minus 10, reduced MA pilot, can't do much about that. But you have some problems here within the town of Templeton revenue as well. And you're looking at an override to get that budget through. To answer your question, basically, is we have to do the best we can for our students who are here now and who will come. And that's the job of the school committee. And this budget of 2.8, the original budget that we were looking at was 4.3. That was unacceptable to us. So we had to ask the budget subcommittee to come up with something that was going to be palatable. And so they did reduce that from there. We're looking at this budget that already has cuts in it. We have further comments. Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Terrazini. I always look at you as Carter.
I would not envy you the challenge of finding $350,000 in your $20+ million budget. You're struggling with how to do that. I don't know how I'm going to find $290,000. in my $5 million budget. If you think that's a challenge for you, just imagine what it'll be on this side. And yes, the 8-year-olds need to be taught about. The snow needs to be plowed so they can get to school. Our police services need to be of high quality so that the safety of the schools and the community continue to be an attraction. Our fire department services these many buildings. It's a simple matter, going back to Vinnie Clodier's buckets. There's only so much money in the bucket. We would like to ask you to leave some of it in there for us.
So, I have a question. So that's, so we spend, which we have to, the R&D and the school choice. And this happened in real time when we were presenting and when we were preparing the budget. 2 students moved in, special needs students that needed to, one, be outplaced at a higher rate, and another had to increase services and the amount. And that one, those 2. It was $150,000. So in 1 week, our budget went up $150,000. What will the town do for us if that happens? Because if I understand it correctly, you will have free cash available for any, God forbid, any emergency that may happen on the local side. What will the town do for the school when we spend our free cash? And if something like that happens. Now, of course, we would verify it, we would prove it, you know. I mean, I realize if someone's out there thinking, oh, you can just take this money and do whatever you want. I'm talking about that. Because currently, I don't have a net. No net. If to find that, I have no net. And these things do happen. When I say all the time, they happen. It happens quite a bit. We talked about this personally. We know that these move-ins happen, and it's on us. What happens?
Yep. Yes. Yes.
First off, I don't have special ed kids that move in. I have snow. Our budget is underfunded going into it by $75,000 plus or minus every single year. If that is the concern, that if the budget is cut to where we're suggested, and then what if we get in trouble having gone to that extra mile? My suggestion is, if that's the concern, if that's the barrier, let's have a conversation between you, myself, some members of the committee, some members here, and see if there isn't some sort of stopgap that could be talked about as being viable.
Thank you, Mrs. Kosel.
Cash. We're
Yes.
down to $40,000 in our E&D. Do you have free cash in the town?
We do for the first time in 5 years, yes.
And are you willing to use any of that to fix any deficits?
We understand, so once the budget is certain, once we have a budget, this goes for any budget, something extra out of the ordinary should happen. Now, for whatever reason, out of the ordinary always is expensive. It's never cheap, for whatever reason. It's never $10, it's always $150,000. I need to worry about that, because once the budget is certain, once everybody votes and it's all out, we're on our own. And we all know that in this room. That's, and I said this to you earlier, is that's one of my main concerns. If we spend down all of this, then I have nothing to go back on, and then if I were to come before anybody, it's really pound sand, because they don't need to do anything before a budget, and that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, I'm concerned about you getting to that point where you're going to go back to either town to survive.
Well,
That's
that's
not a level we want to be at either. Because It's not, sometimes you're not getting to that special ed case that you have to make or something, but you have other issues, and we're not going to go, we have to be able to be functioning as well. We can have a conversation, but I'm not ready to get down to using all of our free cash. The reason they can't use their free cash is because DOR, for the first time in 5 years you have it, with the intervention of Good Work and oversight, DOR being there, if we go and use all ours, they're going to be pounding us as well. How are we existing running budgets like this? So we have some comments. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes.
Liz Toth, on the Finance Committee. First, every year, as long as I can remember, there's been a town versus school, just, there's only so much money to go around. And I'm a parent of one of those kids that's in Monty Tech. I'll state it up front. But I have two that went through Gansett. And I'm a graduate of Gansett myself. First, you can find $42,000, Mr. Terrazzini, with the police, without getting another cruiser for the police department this year. That's $42,000. I think that somehow, the quality of the school system needs to maintain. There's money that just needs to be spent. And my personal opinion is that Mr. Terrazzini likes to cut things that are from both ends of the community, from 50% of the Meals on Wheels for the elderly, and also wants to cut the school. So it's a tough situation. I don't know how to make it work. We somehow need to be able to take care of everybody in our town. Thank you.
Mr. Morrison.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I would not suggest that the town use all of its free cash. I would not suggest that you guys do that either. But there has to be, some sort of compromise that by sitting down and having a conversation we might be able to achieve. It's not good for either of us to do that. And you're correct that we have the constraint of the DOR in addition to it not being a good idea. But I certainly would not suggest that you guys use up all of your free cash to balance your budget either. It just doesn't make sense.
Thank you. Yes.
As you guys know, I'm for these, but I'm kind of the minority on this board for that. However, I know with the solution here that we're talking about free cash usage. Templeton currently doesn't have a bond rating. And with that being said, our bond rating would be severely impacted by spending all of our free cash, which would perpetuate the issue that we have now, because without a low bond rating, going out for the bonds on the school would hurt us even more with interest rates. So the point is that if we are to maintain, and I know the safety net issue here, I'm not entirely sure how we work that out. If we do, or you guys get hit with a blindside impact of whatever it is, maybe there's something that we could formally agree upon, maybe on a safety net issue like that. But I think to take all of our free cash, because I don't think that we have the option to go out for a...
So first, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
Never would ever, even whisper to take all of it. That's you should keep every dime. Okay. But given that bond rating is important for this town, and I know that, we certainly do, I am going to go back and ring the bell of I have to be prepared for everything. My recommendation to the school committee is to be clear that to bring us down to that level truly puts this district, and again, I want to keep knocking. We've been lucky. We've been lucky, but what happened last week, that week that we did the budget, and then it just happened to us, kind of reminded us all that all of a sudden this can and does happen. And again, I'm thankful that Carter's wife is a special education teacher, and he knows that we know, but we speak the same on a lot of levels. I'm happy for her and him that she's a special education teacher. They're the best teachers ever. But it does happen, and we know that. And when we fight those things, we never win them. And we also know that. So when we go to the Board of Special Education Appeals, or we go when they want to raise the rates at a private, especially Chapter 766 school, and we go, well, wait a minute, why do we do this, this? And they go, yeah, they still allow the rates to increase. Those are the things. By the way, we don't have all the rate increases even for next year, right? So none of us do. It just happens. So again, I don't want to get picky about these things. That's what I'm worried about. Because if I steer this committee into a direction of of instability based on one incident, I'm not doing my job. And that truly is my primary concern, because it doesn't have to come back to us, right? That money does not have to be allocated to us because we've made this, right? The school committee has voted on a certain number.
Yes.
Chair, John Caplis, Board of Selectmen. As your priority is the school, our priority is the town as a whole. That we have to look at every aspect of the community, from all the buildings and maintenance to grounds and council on aging and so on that you guys know. Everything affects the bond rating. We are building a new school. Ground has been broken. That's not cheap, right? I mean, it's not cheap. So obviously the money is going to come from the taxpayers. But the bond rating is affected by a lot of different things, to include our capital. So if this kind of stimulus stays the same, and we have to go back to the drawing board, or Carter has to go back to the drawing board to come up with a plan of action to present to us a reduction of the $4 million that we used to operate this town with, and then $2.6 million, that's just salaries, by the way, and benefits. How are we going to do that? So if we have to do that, and unfortunately it comes to the point where, well, Council on Aging will have to get shut down, building will get shut down and mothballed, library will be closed. This is facts. This isn't like, this is facts. Library will be closed. Parks, recreation, cemetery reduced. Veteran services will be reduced by 10 hours and $10,000. I mean, we have a list of things because we come prepared to meetings like this, I mean, financially, to see how things are going to impact the community, and this is how this would impact the community. The only thing that would operate in this town would be fire at a little level right now, unless this override passes. If this override doesn't pass after we hopefully vote it in, then that will also be reduced as well. There will be no ambulance service in this town. You talked about librarian and all the issues you have with a librarian. You can just imagine about how the Office of Emergency Medical Services in Boston and the state comes down on the ambulance service and how the inspectional services are on that for not meeting the criteria and the licensing criteria for that. So once you lose an ambulance, it's gone. This town will no longer have an ambulance, period. I want the school. I have 3 children in the school system myself. And one on the way. So believe me, I got it. I mean, I want to do the best we can, but again, we have to come to some type of, we need to come to some type of agreement where, where both parties are happy, or at least, maybe not happy, but at least manageable at the point that we can get the job done for both parties, the school system as well as the town. And unfortunately, like I said, that bond rating is really going to hurt us. With all our capital assets that are shut down, buildings are capital. People, capital, that all affects the bond rating. So you lose all that in, that's still going to have a negative effect on our bond rating later on down the road, while we're waiting for the last minute to see how the rates are, and using the bands now just to pay for the job that's being done now for the new school. I just need to, I applaud your efforts. This is not an easy job. This is not an easy job, and none of us get paid. So I'm here because I care about the town, I care about the school system, I care about my kids, and I care about all the kids that come to the school. But I mean, everything's going to be impacted, and potentially even depending on where the numbers turn out, because quite frankly, even with all this stuff that I just said might be cut, we're still short like $40,000 to $50,000, which that goes more people. So I mean, that's where Templeton is, and as you can see, obviously, and I'm not going to yell or scream because someone said free cash, but that's like a don't say that word. I mean, utilization of that in a type of operating budget is not going to happen ever in this town again, because that's why the town's in the situation it's in right now, period. It's just not going to happen. Not while I'm elected anyways. I mean, when I don't run again and somebody wants to run against me and beat me, that's great, and they can do what they want to make sure the town goes in the right direction. But I'm looking at 5 years from now, not just tomorrow. And this town has a lot to grow. We are at $16.72 a thousand right now. Right now. Everybody that touches us is at least $19 to $21 a thousand. Ashburnham's at $23 a thousand. Why we like this is because of poor choices and decisions that happened 10 years ago. Utilization of different funds, sewer abatement funds for offsetting budgets, free cash offsetting budgets. Utilization of other things to offset the budget, to maintain the tax rate, on the House 1 and on other schedules. I mean, we understand all that. But the residents don't understand how is this going to impact them at even this override potentially at 60 cents a thousand. That's huge. Then when things fall off next year, like this school falls off next year, that doesn't fall off, it stays on because we have the new school to pay for. So all these things impact, and it has a ripple effect down the road that everybody has to take a bite out of the sandwich. And it's not a good sandwich, by the way. And we all have to find a way to come to some type of conclusion or agreement, or agree to disagree, but find a way to fix where we are, because it's not going to be pretty here in Templeton at all. It's not going to be good. I mean, you're going to pretty much put us in a corner for us to make decisions that aren't going to be helpful. And I mean, we talk about riffing teachers and staff and everything else. I mean, can you imagine people that have worked here for a while, and now they can't work here anymore? I don't know. It's just something I think we need to really come together with. And I mean, I like the relationship I have with the school committee. I think it's great. I really do. I don't think there's like a us against you. I think it's, I mean, you have what you need to do. And obviously we have what we need to do. And we're just representing us, and we're representing the townspeople as a whole. Representing everybody in Templeton, not just all the children, like you represent all the children. We represent everybody else in the town, all 8,000 plus or minus folks. So that's why we're here and pleading with you. There's no joke. This is not a laughing thing. This is facts. Yes, Dr. Katz, sorry.
Yes,
sorry.
Yes, Dr. Kazban.
I'd like to make a recommendation. So I think
It's probably going to be the same as mine, which is to arrange a meeting.
Sorry.
Well, so many meetings right now. With a budget, I don't know.
We have to certify a budget within 7 days. We have to, by law. That's why when we were talking about moving dates, it's very important, because look where we are.
Yep.
But I interrupted you. Is that your suggestion?
Well, no.
Okay.
I was going to say.
I didn't think you'd say that.
I'm sorry, but what I need to understand, okay, no matter what happens, with whatever were to happen in terms of our budget, I need to have a better understanding of what would happen if ever were to be considered to decrease this 2.8, which I'm not suggesting. I need to have a better understanding of what safeguards this district has. It's up to, that's my job. In other words, I mean, if it were to go, then I need to know that. That's what I was going to say. But obviously, there's another. There's you. So I'll allow. I should have just taken it off the table.
Not the first time. I've heard that.
No.
So we do we have to certify this budget, a budget, in 7 days. Am I correct?
Next Wednesday.
Well, our meeting is scheduled, so the 30th is the date.
The 7 days notice. So
It's in the paper.
Yeah.
So we need to have another finance budget meeting?
Check my piece.
All right, so what is the will of this committee?
Close comments.
We have another meeting on this budget next Wednesday. At that point, we have to certify a budget. So we'll have one more comment and we'll close discussion.
I was just wondering if they would be available during the day. I know I am. I know that Mr. Selectman Kaplis is, if that would help matters any. No. I was only asking.
No, and I hear you. I think we are fully aware, of your situation, your request. You're aware of ours. Getting together to discuss it is a waste of everyone's time because we are all really, really busy. So I don't think that is going to be a productive meeting. So I wouldn't advocate for that. I don't think we'll see anything come out of it. We know where you're coming from. We get it. But understand where we come from, too. And
I just wasn't sure if that was something that was on the table or, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there was the question of safeguards, so
I thought that's what we discussed.
Mr. Mason.
Be prudent to go back to the Finance Subcommittee and further discuss the situation before next month's meeting.
Our Finance Subcommittee could meet before then. However, when we brought back the 4.2, and you brought us back the 2.8, and that's what you were telling us was it. But if the Finance Subcommittee wants to meet, then they can bring us...
We got more information that we didn't have at that meeting. So it might be improved.
Personally, I'd like to recalibrate. I think we need that.
Need the Budget Subcommittee meeting.
Yes, just I need to take...
What's the earliest we can do it? Is it 48
And this
hours?
is a public meeting, so...
Can we do it the 26th after our district reorganization meeting? I mean, why go home?
Yes.
Are you sleeping here?
Why not?
so this is for the Budget Finance Subcommittee meeting on Monday. That's the advisory.
Advisory that meets on Monday nights.
So that would be Monday, the 26th, at what time?
Oh, 4:30 is our meeting.
4:30 is our meeting. We have to be done. When do folks need to go to their meeting?
6:30 is the Selectmen's meeting Monday.
So how about we say 6? So we can...
Well, that I believe was the time that your meeting usually ends at.
Yeah, so if we could have the Finance Subcommittee meet at 6 on Monday, that'd be good.
If you could cook dinner in between, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to post it right now. 26th at
Is it-
10. Again, what time? At 6 o'clock?
Okay, so we will have a Budget Subcommittee meeting at 6 o'clock on Monday. Yes, may I have a motion to move out of...
Yes,
I make a motion that we move out of the budget hearing to the regular school committee meeting.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank everyone who added input into the discussion, and we'll further that discussion.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Karen.
Thank you.
We approve the meeting minutes of February 14th.
Second?
Meeting minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Madam Chairman, I move we approve the bills and payroll as presented in
Bills and payments, 740. All right, I'm going to request at this time that we look at our agenda and that that we only take up any items that cannot wait until next Wednesday when we have both.
I'd like to make a recommendation, if I may.
You may.
We have contingent from the high school. And if we're pleased...
Oh, that's right, that's one of the ones we were going to do.
We could utilize it. So for informational are the two calendar, just the two calendar options, traditional and non-traditional for review and then vote on next week, as well as my draft performance goals that can be reviewed and then discussed or whatever for next week. That way we can pass over these. Just as a quick aside, we're going to put out a survey to both, of course, the staff and the community as to which calendar, is their pleasure. I'll give you the quick version. Is the traditional calendar is the traditional calendar with February and April vacation, and the
Take a 5 minutes so just consider out and things to be quiet.
Well, actually, if we got this, okay. I do. We've had a request to take a 5-minute recess. Anybody opposed to that? At this point, we will adjourn at this point, and we will come back into public session. And we'll take 5 minutes, so that means at 7:45.
Sorry.
All right, back into session. Thank you, Mrs. Kozel. Mr. Hill, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is James Houle, and I'm standing in for student rep for CJ Loddick because he had prior arrangements. So the third quarter of our school year has begun. Midterm progress reports will be going home soon. The sports teams had a very good season. Both the basketball boys and girls teams are going to went to the district tournaments, and the boys played in the Clark tournament. Went to track, ended their season strongly as well. The spring sports season is going to have a rough start with all the snow, but they're getting out started now. The Drama Club is gearing up for the spring musical Legally Blonde, which will be opening on April 7th, and the tickets are available online. The Drama Club has also participated in competition this month at Leominster High School, and although the group as a whole didn't place, 2 students, Cassie Pentola and Matt Cormier, received All-Star awards. And on March 14th, students participated in a walkout to support school safety and to stand in solidarity with those who lost their lives, and encouraging students to be kind to each other. The walkout was planned and coordinated by a group of students who wanted to make a difference. They had support from Dr. Cassman, Mr. Iben, Mr. Jersey, and Mrs. Fliss. During the walkout, students went to the gym, where students of the planning committee recognized the 17 victims of the school shooting that took place on February 14th at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. The planning committee is now planning a kindness campaign for the high school and want to include the middle school as well, in order to create a long-lasting effect. AP students are participating in the mock exam sessions in preparation for their spring exam. The MCAS, the 10th grade will be taking their ELA MCAS next week, Tuesday through Thursday. And the seniors are working on their scholarship applications, and National Honor Society has just accepted applications for new inductees. As well, last night, the high school band, chorus, color guard, and twirlers completed their successful Almost Spring concert. And the marching band also recently performed in the Holyoke St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will say, he gives me far too much credit, and he gives the rest of the adults far too much credit. I simply met with this wonderful group of 22 students whom I just simply asked, what effect would you like to make, and how can it positively affect Narragansett? It was really the only thing I said. And what took place after that was a very thoughtful and remembrance, and it was done completely and entirely by the students. They did all of the work. I would love to take credit for something that goes well. Trust me. I do. But I can't in good conscience, quite frankly, because they were an amazing group. And I honestly could not be prouder of them, honestly. The whole group, everybody, they just fantastic. We're very lucky.
Thank you very much.
May I just add one more thing about the walkout? The students also created a banner that we had a lot of students who signed that. We're planning to mail it this week to the Stoneman Douglas High School. It's out in the lobby. I'll make sure there's some markers there, so if you guys would like to sign it also, we'd love to have you be part of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. But that gave us a lot to think about.
So as I was speed talking, I apologize.
For the, you were on the calendar.
Yes, I was. There are two versions. Traditional, which is honestly the typical, is that we all have been a part of, and the Plan B calendar has no April vacation. Now, hold on, or someone throws something at me. The interesting thing about this is that April vacation next year is bookended by two holidays. It's Good Friday, which we have school off in this district, and that was Patriots. So really, it only affects 3 days. When you take those days and you don't do anything with them, meaning that you don't sprinkle them as a weekend or something to that effect, the last day of school would be June 5th. Now, okay, so you add 10 snow days, because that's what we do here, and that's not funny, but okay. But it would still prevent what we're all trying to prevent right now, where we are. It's this issue about do we round in June. But also, those days will, and as the committee would, that's more days, instructional days that we can use because we, of course, have MCAS for month of April, and that's important. That's what we do. It's one of the things that we do. We don't focus on it exclusively, but it's certainly an important piece. So. The thought is that for your perusal, and then I will tomorrow send this out via the internet as to get some feedback as we did last year. I'll have that feedback for the committee next week to help to help you inform your decision. The other thing too is we did not, in neither calendar will you see a 4-day Labor Day weekend. We've done that in the past. Every day starts to, as we find out now, every day counts at this point in time. So it's the committee. That was the committee of staff members who they came up with this. So
certainly interesting. May I just request if the rest of them committee agrees, if you double-sided A and B and sent it out via each student, so the calendar choices A, the traditional, and B, are sent home with the students so the parents could actually see them. The internet is wonderful when people go to our website.
We will actually, the way we do...
Oh, I thought you said internet.
The way we do this, we actually utilize their email addresses. And it sends. It actually goes. Right, we can do it multiple ways. And if I'm remembering from again from Mr. Wakefield that we actually send it out to them as an email. They click on it, a link.
Okay, that's fine. I wasn't understanding that. I thought it was going to be just on the internet.
No. It'll be sent to their email address.
You need to have comments come back. Thank you very much. Yes, Liz.
You said that. And I'm looking at it right now because that's what I was looking at prior to you saying it, that there was no 4-day Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
Can you, I don't know if I missed it or if you didn't say, why was that they're not doing it this year?
Well, the teaching
Sorry, that they're not proposing it?
So from the teaching perspective, the stop and starts hamper us. So in some months, some years it's like 3. Then we go like a 4-day, and it's 4, and then we don't really have a full week until like the 3rd week of school, if you think of it that way. And it's primarily for the elementary, it's hard, believe it or not. We're trying to gain momentum in those early weeks. We're trying to get them into a schedule, into getting things moving. So there was one. The other part was that any day that we could salvage, quite frankly, again, this is the committee, and they felt that it was worth giving that up. In other words, not giving it up, but just that on the back end, in June, you reap the benefits, not going into potentially the last week or, God forbid, into July, which you can't.
I don't think you can do that anyway.
We'd have to start going on Saturdays.
Yes, we'd have to do Saturday classes, which, as you know, people around us are starting to have to think about.
Yes.
I guess I'm looking at this, and there's 14 potential days. I think the emphasis of getting out early in June, I don't buy it, personal opinion. I'm more concerned and justifying why we are doing what we're doing, time and learning. If we're trying to prepare our kids and get them educated to take these tests that we're mandated to give during certain time frames, I don't care if we go to June 30th. It doesn't matter to me. There's enough cushion built in. With this schedule, I look at if we went with an option B, why do we start before Labor Day? Why don't we start after Labor Day? Why don't we start after Labor Day? We still have 10 days for snow days. So, but again, now if I say, okay, well, we have more time and learning before tests, well, now I can make a case for doing it. And I think that's the focus of this calendar, has to be time on learning for the kids for the testing that we're required to do during those time frames. Just getting out early to me is not an argument.
So it's not an argument. It's not the argument for the school committee. It's a argument for teaching staff and children. I'm just saying, look, I respect the committee. They brought this to me, and I respect what they have to say. I will tell you that what we do know is that testing is done, depending on, we have makeups, MCAS makeup, etc. But by May, we're done. So we want all of our time where we have a residual, right, a positive, is that we're out earlier in June. But I have to say, the committee, we took the same committee as we did last year, and they are starting before. They said the same thing, but if we're talking about getting as much momentum as possible before these crucial tests, this is what that calendar would look like. So April, I left the room for a minute, take a phone call, I came back, and April vacation was gone. True story. I said, well, where did you put the days? They said, we did it. Because we need those days to test if we're going to do X, Y, or Z. So this is really, again, I'm just telling you how it happened for real. It only took 3 meetings, so they were pretty focused.
If you look at the April vacation, all your testing is done before that as well.
No.
You're still testing in April 20s?
March and May.
We actually go into, I don't know the schedule this year.
AP exams are usually like the first couple of weeks of May, and then there's impact testing the third week of May, I believe.
The science, I believe, right? Science.
Is it makeup or?
Some are makeup, some are June, some are, but they're assessments.
The only thing I just comment on, if you let an 8-year-old, that's the age tonight, out on June 5th, that's you're back on the 27th. That's a lot of time that they're not reinforcing learning. I mean, when you start to look at the periods of months. If, for example, say you didn't have your 10 snow days and you actually realized June 5th, you would have July, August, and to the end of August. What is that? I shut it off, people.
Well, there's no doubt.
That's what they had. We'll vote on it, but I mean, it just seems like getting out early because our contract goes to the 30th of June.
Yep, and what we also know is that this particular calendar, we can't use this as we discussed, that, remember, this is through 2019. We'll be moving into a brand new building. It'll be ready for occupancy August 2019. We also need as much time as possible in the early June, July to do what we did prior. So I will tell you that the committee didn't think of that. They shouldn't. That's not their job to think like that. That's my job, to be anal and to worry constantly about stuff. But it gives us the most time. Now, granted, we know that we're going to have snow days, but it gives us the most time to do the boxing, the moving, the stuff that we're going to have to do, although it will be part of the contract. Teachers will have to pack up their stuff. And Baltimore Elementary School probably hasn't packed up in I don't know how long. It's already. So it's going to take some time to do that.
That's a good point. Thank you. Yeah.
The window for MCAS for grades 3 through 8 goes through May 25th, and then the high school science is in early June.
Wow.
So will we be in school for early June for the high school?
I was just saying to Kate that that's subject to change because this same conversation has come up with other schools across the state, and I'm seeing something from the DESE that they're looking at potentially moving that effective date up.
Okay.
But our MCAS does go with May. It doesn't end May.
Okay, thank you.
That's a concern. We set on a schedule and find out that our students need to be here to take a test and we're not in session. It's kind of an issue. So.
And the end of May with MCAS, if they're out the next week, they may not be in a testing frame either. But it's the way it is. Yes, Mrs. Chaudier.
Isn't graduation always the first Friday of June?
Graduation in this calendar is May 31st.
Okay. I just thought it was typical. So we can set that whenever it's not written.
I thought it was the first Friday of June. It's technically been the first Friday. It's always been the first Friday.
We were told, we were told a lot of things, actually, when graduation used to be and where it is now.
I'm just curious. It'd be kind of funny if it was after the last day of school. That's all.
Let's start those seniors right now.
No. Survived, so we're good.
All right, well, thank you very much. So that'll go out now. And sounds like the committee did some pretty good thinking there.
Yes, and please send your thanks to the committee because this must have been a very interactive discussion.
Yeah, because we had one.
Yeah.
All right, so I just want to mention that we have the performance goals for the evaluation that the school committee is responsible for, of Dr. Kazavan. He has presented us, and we have worked as an academic subcommittee. We don't want to do anything with this tonight. We'll bring it back next Wednesday after you've had time to look through it and register any questions or comments.
A couple caveats, Chair, is that one, you will see a few timelines not on the goal because we don't have several of the reports back yet that I would need in order to complete the goal. So, for example, the CPR, the coordinated review, CPR, right, for special education and civil rights. They're here next week. So that report won't be back until, say, maybe July. So I'm going to need some weeks because I need that in order to do some of these goals. So some of the timelines will have to come a little bit later. But I just want to point out that on the evidence of effectiveness, below it, on every goal, there's one goal for every of the major areas. I linked them to the indicators that were presented during the academic subcommittee as my priority indicators. So you'll see, for example, just the first page, standard 1, or let's go with standard 3, family and community engagement for my professional practice goal of continuing to strengthen internal and external communication with both community stakeholders and district employees. I hit standard 3, C1, C2, and B1 by implementing by the action steps and the evidence presented through that. So you'll look at the very appendix A. It's at the very back, and I've highlighted the standards and indicators that were presented to me as my focus.
Well done. We'll discuss that next week as well. So now we have our presentation.
So, Mr. D'Arcy, our Spanish teacher, came to us with a presentation idea, or pardon me, with an idea to go to Nicaragua. I, of course, second away. Then I was reminded that I should be more inclusive and listen. And I'm joking, I did not say anything more really So, Mr. D'Arcy will present to you his reasoning to go to Nicaragua.
Cool, thanks. I'm Mr. D'Arcy, Jared D'Arcy. I'm a Spanish teacher here. Thanks a lot for having me. I'll go quick. I know it's late. Yes, potentially go to Nicaragua, Narragansett Regional High School. Nicaragua, for those of you who don't know, is in Central America. Yeah, it's funny, but half of the students that I presented to thought it was in Africa. So, reason number one, geography. So, as you all know, or anybody who's ever gone on an international trip, there's lots of options. The reason that I chose British communities because I worked for them for 3 years. I lived in Nicaragua there. I worked with over 40 different school, college, temple, church, business groups, worked with over 400 different volunteers. In my opinion, this is one of the best organizations to work with because of the fact that they focus primarily on cultural education and cross-cultural education and service learning, something that I value very highly. It's about the education for both students who go and also the people that we will be working with. These are some of the areas that this organization works with. Why take it? For me, the biggest reason is to become a global citizen, the educational value that the students would have and teachers would have, everyone who went on a trip, to learn about the difference between social development and charity. What are the differences? Why are they both good? Why are they both bad? All those different things. Nicaragua is also unbelievably beautiful. So that's a great reason to go. I already had an informational session on February 13th. 28 students attended. They sent some packets back to their parents. There was a high level of interest. It was very positive. Also, numerous students, including two that are here, were potential student leaders as well to help organize it, to spread the word a little bit more. Very well. This is a picture of my daughter, just so you know. She's been there 4 times now. She's 4 years old. So this obviously is changing, or potentially can change. The standard trip that the organization runs is 9 days. Depending on how the schedule is for the next year, it could be either February, March, or April, I guess. February or March are the 2 ones that we would be looking at primarily. As I said on here, those dates, we would need to lock those in relatively quickly because the organization works with tons of different schools, so we would need to lock in our time with them to make sure that we get that slot. The big one here, the cost. So approximately $2,700 per volunteer. I know money's tight, having just been through the last 2 hours of this meeting. So I just want to ask all of you to give $2,700 for your students to go on the trip. However, yes, this includes everything that you can see here. Everything from getting a bus ride to the airport, coming back, the program fees, absolutely everything. Food, you get 3 meals a day, which is all beautiful. We'll go through that a little bit more. And included in this is also insurance, things that most parents and everyone else is extremely worried about. And I'll go over that in a little bit more. So, safety. Lots of people think that Nicaragua is still in a war. Luckily, it's not. It ended in 1986, so that's great. According to the United Nations, it's very safe. It actually just passed Costa Rica as being the most safe country to visit in Central America, which is great. The CDC does not require any vaccines, any special vaccines to go there, just the routine ones that most people in the United States get. Malaria, typhoid are the ones that some people choose to get, whether it's a shot or pills while you're there. All the water that you drink while you're there is purified. All the water that's used to cook your food is also purified. There's security guards there, even though it's very safe. First aid, all the staff that work there are first aid trained and on their emergency evacuation medical insurance. If anything was to happen, you are immediately whisked back to the United States, and all of that is covered by the organization. Any health problems that you may have if you need to go, because you have a toothache, it's covered. If you need to go because you get malaria, that's all covered as well. The medical staff there, the doctors are amazing. I had a lot of dental work done there. That's why the smile is so beautiful. So a typical week, just to give you a very fast rundown. Like I said, this is a cross-cultural educational trip. It's not just about tourism. So every single day what we would do, we'd arrive to the community, we'd meet the local leaders that we would be working with. They would show us where we would be staying. Most of the time, the group, the chaperone, everybody would stay in a school, a church, or a local person's home, which they transformed into a living space. Boys here, girls here, chaperones here, right? Everyone's very well accounted for, along with the staff as well. So we'd always sleeping on cots with your nice mosquito net. It's beautiful. Wake up early, get to work. We'd be working with a family, whether the project would be to work on building a home, a latrine, a school, efficient stoves. There's lots of different projects based on the community where we work. So we'd work most of the day, you'd have lunch, naps, hang out, and then every evening there's a cultural exchange. So there's an educational value, whether that's bringing in a group of high schoolers in the local community to have nice, I don't know the word, intercambios in Spanish, interactions, I guess. Playing games, learning from the community members, all those great things. You finish up the work by having a nice dedication ceremony of the home, and then you're able to have 2 days-ish of the tourism part, where you get to learn and see the beautiful beaches, or a lagoon, or wherever we decide to go. I know that was fast. Questions? House dedication is beautiful. This is usually a ceremony that's done. Sometimes we buy gifts. There's always a piñata, always lots of dancing, always lots of good food. It's beautiful. Cultural exchange, like I said, the one on the left, we decided to do a talent show one evening. So all of the high school students got to show something they were amazing at doing. And the Nicaraguans as well showed us how to dance or different types like that. Not only are you building the house, there's lots of other things that you're able to do. Milking cows, learning how to use a machete, making tortillas, all kinds of different things that you might not do in your normal day. And that's it. This is the daughter taking a bath right here, and this is her in a hole. So that's the foundation. I heard that word a lot tonight, foundation, so there we go. Sorry, I flew through that. Any questions?
Are they really learning to use a machete?
Yes. Sorry, maybe I should have been
I think you could have gone all night and not said that part.
That's one of the activities that you might do. Okay. Or for an agricultural exchange, depending on how large the group is, right? You don't need 20 people in a house. So during the morning, you might go with a local farmer, and you might clear a field that they're working on. There's all kinds of different things. It's not just building the home. So you're not learning how to use a machete. You're helping a local guy.
Excellent. Excellent.
You're learning how to be a farmer.
Okay, so what do you need from us tonight?
Well, so this is the presentation. What we would like is to move forward with obviously getting some serious feedback, getting to see, okay, sort of 28, students expressed interest, but, all right, now, because the reason why they're starting so early, because of that, they want to fundraise or save or whatever the case is over an entire year. So this isn't going to be like, oh, in 4 months we have to do X, Y, or Z.
If I might just say, so if it's all right, usually when you do an overseas trip like this, the best way to do it is to divide it up into payments. At this rate, if we were, let's say we were looking at March, you're 12 months out, it would probably be over 10 months. Most of the time, these companies like to have everything paid for. And I think it's 60 days.
Yeah, this is 60 days.
60 days before you travel. So you would break that down into 10 payments, and then that way it's not such a burden on parents to come up with the money all at one time, not a balloon payment.
So this is initial approval.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this number based on a minimum number of participants?
So
the dollar amount?
Yes, more or less. We estimated that based on, I think we did it based on 22 participants, and that number being for every 7 students, we would need 1 chaperone. So it's ratio 7 to 1 there.
I think it's a great opportunity. Actually, both of our daughters went, back when they were juniors, they went to Guatemala.
Cool.
It was a great experience for them, but the participation was low.
Okay.
So I just, I'd be concerned that you're not going to get 22.
That's fine. And this was the estimate that we did was on the high as well. So I think whether it's 22 or 8, I think it's going to be very close to that number.
Oh, well, that's good then. It's a great experience. I mean, it was a phenomenal opportunity.
And I put out a few bids as well with other organizations, and the number is right around the same. And this trip's actually longer, and I think that the educational value, I mean, you're living in a community. You're not driving around the country on a bus. I mean, you're really experiencing it. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
So should we take, I'm sorry, Mrs. Matson?
Yes. How many is the minimum that you can take?
The organization wants you to go with at least 9. So it's saying that it could be 7 students and 2 chaperones.
Okay.
Yep.
And what was the maximum you told me?
The max is 25. 25, yep.
Okay,
I mean, if
so-
we have 50, then we can split in 2 groups. I mean, that'd be amazing. But it's not going to.
So I want a motion that we give initial approval to move forward with the Nicaragua trip, and have you report back maybe in, say, 2 months.
Cool.
Let us know what you have for signups and maybe a better timeline as to financing and fundraising and more information.
Sounds great.
I second it. All those in favor? Aye. And we have a written form that you can use at that time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We all want to go. No, thank you. Yes, I know.
You'll need the calendar. Thank you very much. Put my name in.
Very entertaining presentation. Thank you. Nice reason. Do we have anything else?
I think we can probably...
Do we have a donation that we need to accept?
That's quick. Quick and easy.
I have a question.
$40 donation.
Say you get your 25 students, can you take extra adults?
Yes.
Or is 25 the limit?
No, the organization is very open. The more the merrier.
You
Absolutely.
created a lot of interest down here, so just letting you know.
The school committee's going to go.
Forget the
School committee's going. School committee trip. Forget the MASC convention this year. I don't think he quite knows what to make of us right now.
No, yeah, I want you all to come. It's great. If you guys just want to do a school
You don't.
Central office is also going to go. So
Oh, yeah.
I've already been there. In 1986, by the way.
Cool.
We're
really
fun.
donation to
Yeah.
accept.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we accept the donation from the Templeton High School class of 1947.
47, yeah. Wow.
So this gentleman called us to let us know that this was left in his account. I just need to tell you that you can look him up on Google, but he invented the MRE. This gentleman, graduate from Narragansett Regional High School, invented the meal ready to eat that every one of us who's been in the service has eaten far too many
Oh, my
times.
goodness.
He has a citation, and he told us all about it, didn't he?
Class of 47,
Yes.
Templeton High School.
Templeton, pardon me. Templeton, I say regional? Oh, my God.
Templeton High School.
He told us all about it, and it was a really great, support.
So we have a motion?
Move
Do
we
you have a
accept it.
second on the motion? All those,
$40.
all those in favor? Aye. All right, I'll have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Are we going to do policy and stuff next week at our budget meeting? Could we please? Yeah.